It was a typical rainy October day in Vancouver. Elise climbed the hill toward number 344, the local newspaper office, carefully stepping around puddles that dotted the sidewalk. I can't believe this is actually happening today, Elise thought, a thrill rising in her chest. Today's the day. The traffic lights switched to red, forcing her to pause. Her mind drifted back to a memory. It was the summer of 1957. Julian Beatrice lay sprawled on the living room carpet, his head resting near the speakers of the old radiogram. One of his favorite Mozart records, Ein Kleinnachtmusik, spun gently on the turntable. School had just ended, and a long, endless summer awaited him. Julian had just completed grade 7, while his older sister Marianne was finishing grade 12. Marianne had secured a summer job, leaving Julian in the company of just their mother. He didn't mind, he was naturally solitary, content to read, listen to music, or help his mother around the house. He looked forward to visiting the library later, once his mother went into town. "Stop daydreaming and get ready, Julian. We're heading into town soon," his mother called from the kitchen. "I'm coming, Moody." "Just waiting for the record to finish," Julian replied. Though never impatient, his mother was used to her son's tendency to drift into his thoughts. She often wondered what his inner world looked like. As a schoolteacher, she had a keen understanding of children. When Julian was younger, she had to teach to support the family income, often bringing him along since a babysitter was a luxury they couldn't afford. Being 2 years younger than most of his classmates, Julian adapted quickly, and the principal had promoted him ahead at the end of the year. "I thought we could stop by Stacy's before hitting the library. They're running a summer sale, and maybe I could pick up a few t-shirts for you. You've been growing so fast lately," she suggested. "Thanks, Moody." "That sounds wonderful," Julian replied, pleased at the thought. He enjoyed trips to Stacy's, especially because a milkshake treat usually followed afterward. Indeed, his mother's observation was correct, he had grown taller. Being younger than most classmates, he often didn't quite fit in. Not that anyone bullied him, he just felt a bit out of place. His only close friends were his sister and Fiona, the neighbor's daughter, but lately, both had been maturing quickly, leaving Julian feeling small. He knew, however, that he would soon catch up. As his mother drove into town, Julian gazed out the window, lost in thought. He missed Fiona Smith, his longtime friend. Fiona was 2 years older and had often spent afternoons at his house, playing piano while he accompanied her on the recorder. But now she was staying with her aunt in the city to attend a high school with a strong music program. "You seem deep in thought, Julian," Mrs. Beatrice observed, noticing her son's faraway look. "I was just thinking about how much I miss Fiona. We used to do so many things together during summer," Julian sighed. "I miss her too," his mother replied warmly. Over the years, she had grown fond of Fiona. The children got along wonderfully and were always eager to help her. Together, they had spent hours baking, making preserves, arranging flowers, and even sewing and knitting. Those moments had created lasting memories. "Well, here we are at Stacy's. If we hurry, we can still grab milkshakes afterward," she added, trying to lift his spirits. They made their way to the escalator that led to the children's section. As they ascended, Mrs. Beatrice scanned the store for the t-shirts she had seen in the morning paper. Spotting the sale display, they quickly made their way over. "Look at this dress, Julian. Isn't it beautiful?" Mrs. Beatrice exclaimed, holding up a long cotton party dress adorned with a delicate floral pattern. Its lace collar and cuffs added an elegant touch that made it stand out. "This is exactly the kind of dress Fiona would have adored," she said, pressing the soft fabric against her cheek. "It's a pity your sister is all grown up now. I would have loved to buy it for her." "Maybe you could get it for me, Moody," Julian blurted out, caught up in a sudden impulse. In his mind, he pictured himself wearing the dress. He had always dreamed of something like it, with all the yearning of his secret imagination. "What was that, Julian?" his mother asked, startled. Julian froze, realizing he had spoken aloud. He had never shared this private fantasy with anyone, and he knew his father would have been upset if he had known. A Beatrice boy, after all, was expected to be strong and reserved. I mean, maybe I could give it to Fiona as a gift, Julian mumbled, trying quickly to cover his slip of words. Mrs. Beatrice studied him carefully, noting his flushed cheeks and the slight trembling in his hands. Years of teaching had taught her to read children's subtle cues, and she realized Julian was revealing something deeply personal. She had just caught a rare glimpse into his private world. "That's a sweet thought, Julian," she said gently. "But I wonder, will it even fit you? Why don't we try it on in the fitting room? You and Fiona are about the same size these days." She observed him closely as she spoke. Julian's hands shook, and his gaze fell to the floor. In a soft whisper, he replied, "Yes, Moody." Taking the dress, Mrs. Beatrice led the way toward the fitting rooms, Julian following with a racing mind and a pounding heart. Inside, she instructed calmly, "Take off your shoes, shirt, and pants. Now close your eyes and lift your arms," she said as she carefully slipped the dress over his head. As she fastened the buttons, memories of dressing little girls crossed her mind, but dressing her own son like this was entirely unexpected. She adjusted the dress with precision and gently turned him to face the mirror. "All right, open your eyes. Do you think Fiona would like it?" Julian could hardly believe what he saw. The dress was exquisite. "Moody, it's beautiful. I love it," he exclaimed, completely mesmerized. He was lost in the beauty of the dress, so absorbed that he forgot to answer his mother's question. Fiona was no longer in his thoughts. He had longed for a dress like this his whole life, and now it was right in front of him. Mrs. Beatrice, watching quietly, shook her head slightly, trying to process what she was witnessing. Then she made a decision. "Well, we'll take it," she said. "And it fits you so well, maybe you should wear it home?" The suggestion overwhelmed Julian. Emotion surged through him, and he wrapped his arms tightly around his mother, pressing his face against her chest and letting out quiet, relieved sobs. They remained like that for a long moment, silently comforting each other. Mrs. Beatrice gently stroked his hair, understanding him without saying a word. "All right, let's dry those tears," she said softly. "We'll need some shoes to go with this dress. Look at those old sneakers, they look completely wrong with something so lovely." Both of them laughed at the worn shoes, which were barely holding together. Without waiting for him to reply, Mrs. Beatrice took Julian's hand, gathered his old clothes, and approached a shop assistant. "My daughter loves this dress so much, she wants to wear it now. Do you have shoes to match?" "Of course, madam, right this way," the assistant said. Turning to Julian, she added kindly, "You look wonderful, Mississippi. The dress really brings out the color of your hair and eyes." Julian felt his cheeks flush, suddenly self-conscious, but his mother's reassuring squeeze gave him the courage to stand tall. He adjusted the skirt of the dress before sitting down to try on the shoes, a gesture he had imagined countless times. The assistant returned with a pair of simple black sandals, featuring a small gold buckle and ankle strap, along with white socks trimmed with delicate lace. "These will look perfect with your dress, the lace matches the cuffs and collar beautifully." Julian slipped them on and stood in front of the mirror, a wave of joy washing over him. He grabbed his mother's hands and pleaded, "Can we buy them, Moody? Please." "Of course, Elise." Mrs. Beatrice replied with a warm smile. Julian froze, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Moody," he began, but the words faltered. Somehow, as if sensing the unspoken, Mrs. Beatrice seemed to understand. She knew her son had always wanted to be called Elise. Ever since they were children, Julian had begged his sister to let him hang a picture of Elise in his room. He often daydreamed about it, imagining himself in a beautiful dress with a white apron, wandering through the Alps, picking flowers, and chasing goats. "That sounds perfect." "We'll take them," Mrs. Beatrice said to the shop assistant. "Could you put the sneakers in the box instead?" After completing the purchase, she gathered the parcels containing Julian's old clothes and gently took his hand. "Come on, Elise. We need to get your hair done. That tomboy look doesn't quite match your lovely new dress. She walked quickly, hoping to reach the salon before a crowd formed. Julian hurried to keep up, gripping her hand tightly and half running, half skipping alongside her. The soft taps of his new shoes on the sidewalk delighted him. It was exactly as he had imagined. He was radiant with joy. Arriving at the hair salon, Julian felt a twinge of nervousness. He had never been to one before, and the thought of someone cutting his hair made him uneasy. His first haircut had been a traumatic memory. At 3 years old, his father had insisted on a short back and sides, despite Julian's protests. He remembered the barber's yellowed teeth, the sour breath, and the laughter of the men in the shop. The experience had haunted him in nightmares for weeks. Since then, his mother had taken on the task herself. It was never without protest. Julian would delay the inevitable until his father intervened. Then, invariably, he was brought to the kitchen for a quick trim. "Hello, Mrs. Harlow. This is my daughter, Elise. I know we don't have an appointment, but could you possibly fit her in? She's growing up now, and it's time for a new style," Mrs. Beatrice asked, apologetic yet hopeful. "Of course, we're not too busy yet," the stylist replied with a warm smile. "Hello, Elise. You look lovely in that dress. But, well, your hair is quite a mess, if I may say so." Mrs. Harlow circled him, examining his hair from every angle. "We'll need to cut a fair bit, but I know just the style to complement your dress. Please sit over here and lean back. We'll start with a shampoo." Julian was enchanted. The scent of the shampoo, the gentle yet firm massage on his scalp, and the soft perfume surrounding the stylist made him feel completely cherished. He hadn't even noticed his mother quietly step out of the room. "All done with the shampoo, you can sit up now," Mrs. Harlow said, wrapping his hair in a towel like a turban, just as his sister used to do. She dried and combed his hair with precision, trimming it while he watched in the mirror. Just then, the door opened, and Julian's mother returned, a knowing, gentle smile on her face. "I've evened out the ends so they're all the same length. But with this new cut, it will still look long," Mrs. Harlow explained, using a curling iron to shape the fringe and the nape. "See how this style highlights your neck and the lace on your collar, Elise?" Julian was ecstatic. "Thank you, Mrs. Harlow, you truly have a gift," Mrs. Beatrice said warmly. She then turned to Julian. "Close your eyes for a moment." He obeyed. Her hands adjusted something at the back of his neck. When Mrs. Harlow exclaimed, "Oh, how lovely!" Julian opened his eyes to see a delicate gold necklace resting around his neck, a tiny heart locket sparkling, just like the one his sister had received. "Thank you, Moody!" Julian exclaimed, hugging her tightly. His mother's eyes glistened, touched by the moment. Mrs. Harlow, sensing the significance, smiled warmly. "You have a wonderful daughter, Mrs. Beatrice. Please come back again. This must be a very special day for Elise." "Yes, it truly is," both Mrs. Beatrice and Julian replied together. "That's enough excitement for one day. Let's skip the milkshakes and have some tea at home instead, shall we, Elise?" Mrs. Beatrice suggested as they left the salon. "Yes, Moody," Julian agreed, still a little dizzy from the morning's events. Walking side by side, he marveled at how the dress swished with each step. Every reflective shop window caught his eye, showing him glimpses of his new silhouette. The walk home was quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. When they reached the cool kitchen just past noon, Mrs. Beatrice set the parcels down and sank into the old armchair with a sigh. "What a morning! It turned out so differently than I expected. And we completely forgot to pick up those t-shirts, Elise." Julian, however, was already busy, setting cups on a tray and putting the kettle on as he always did. From across the room, Mrs. Beatrice was struck by how lovely he looked. She was grateful for this rare glimpse into his inner world and felt their bond deepen, but she wasn't sure how to navigate what came next. "I need to talk to someone about this," she thought. "Is anyone home? I thought I heard the kettle." It was Aunt Doris, Fiona's mother, who often popped by for a chat when she heard the kettle whistling. "And who is this pretty girl, Gretchen?" she asked, noticing Julian carefully placing an extra cup on the tray. "But it's you, Julian," she exclaimed, eyes widening in surprise. "I can't believe it. You look so lovely, turn around, let me see." Heat rushed to Julian's cheeks. Tears pricked his eyes, and he froze. Mrs. Beatrice stepped in gently. "Why don't you take the parcels upstairs to your room, Elise? Then come back and show me that beautiful dress," Aunt Doris added encouragingly. Upstairs, Julian still felt shy, but Mrs. Beatrice explained the situation to her friend, seeking her advice. Aunt Doris, who had known the Beatrices for years, listened with a soft spot for Julian. Soon, his nervousness eased as the three shared tea just as they always had. Eventually, Aunt Doris rose. "Well, I must be off. I'll think about everything, Gretchen. And thank you for the tea, Elise." Julian blushed as he walked her to the door. She gave his hand a gentle squeeze and whispered, "You look absolutely beautiful." Mrs. Beatrice cleared away the tea things and began preparing for supper. Julian retreated to the living room to listen to music. Less than half an hour later, the doorbell rang again. Mrs. Beatrice opened it to find Aunt Doris holding 2 large cardboard boxes. "I thought about it," Aunt Doris said. "I brought over some of Fiona's old clothes. Most are barely worn, but she grew out of them so quickly. I hope Elise likes them." "Who's that?" Julian asked, curious. "It's Aunt Doris. She brought you something." "Help me carry these boxes upstairs," Mrs. Beatrice replied. Julian's excitement bubbled over as he discovered the boxes were filled with Fiona's old clothes. Together they unpacked, Julian exclaiming with delight at each piece. "Oh, look at this, Moody. Do you remember how pretty Fiona looked in this? We'll put the shoes and undergarments in your drawers, but we'll need to iron these dresses first. Pick your favorite, and tomorrow we can show Aunt Doris," Mrs. Beatrice said, matching his excitement. Time slipped by unnoticed as they sorted through the clothing. Suddenly, they heard the car pull into the driveway. Mr. Beatrice was home. Julian froze, heart pounding. What would his father think? Instinctively, Mrs. Beatrice wrapped her arms around her son. "Do you need help crossing the street, ma'am?" "Huh?" Elise looked up, startled by the man beside her. The lights changed several times. "I thought you might need a hand," he said kindly. "Oh, no, sorry. I was lost in thought," Elise replied, cheeks warming. She hoped the rain might hide it. "Thank you, though." As the light changed, Elise continued walking. Then, she spotted the large sign, the Herald. Why hadn't I noticed it before? She wondered. Opening her umbrella, Elise stepped inside, nerves fluttering. The office was open plan, and it felt as though everyone was watching. Hesitating for a moment, she finally spotted the reception desk. "Can I help you, ma'am?" the receptionist asked. I must look awful, Elise thought, but she drew a deep breath and approached the counter. "I'd like to file a notice of a name change, please," she said quietly. "Certainly," the receptionist replied, then called out to a woman seated at the far end of the room. "Zoe, I've got a name change request for you." Elise felt as though the floor might swallow her whole. Heat rushed to her ears as embarrassment washed over her. A woman stood up from her desk and smiled in her direction. Elise tried to walk normally, but with so many eyes on her, she felt like she was being guided along strings, every step overly conscious. As she approached, Elise realized Zoe wasn't as young as she had first assumed, she was simply small in stature. Zoe greeted her with an easy, reassuring smile. "Hi, I'm Zoe, no surprise there," she said lightly, giving a playful wink. "Go ahead and take a seat." She slid a form across the desk and asked Elise to fill it out. As Elise began writing, she noticed her hands shaking slightly. "Is it obvious that I'm nervous?" Elise asked, half joking, half mortified. Yes, Zoe replied gently and without hesitation. But that's completely understandable. This is a big moment, and it takes courage. The form itself was straightforward: address, current name, and the new one she was choosing. Elise finished it quickly. After paying the fee, she thanked Zoe and stood to leave. But Zoe stepped out from behind the desk and pulled her into a brief, warm hug. Welcome to the family, Elise. That was all it took. The emotions Elise had been holding back finally spilled over, tears filling her eyes. Thank you, Zoe. I need to go, she murmured, her voice barely steady. By the time she stepped back outside, the tears were flowing freely. She didn't care who might see. For the first time, she felt truly happy. If you appreciated this story and wish to show your support, don't forget to join me on Patreon for exclusive content.